Hey guys, and welcome to Red Alert 3. We're going to be on Infinity Isle, spawning once again with JulzzZ as the green Empire, because, you know, Empire and JulzzZ just go together, and as the blue allies, because this seems to be the deal now, like, just showing players that haven't been around in a while. Maniek, frickin' iCairo, or iCyro. I guess it would be Cairo? No. I don't even know now. Cyro, Cryo. Anyways, it is going to be Maniek playing as the blue allies, and what do we go? He's going to be sending a dog across the front, and instead, JulzzZ is like, hey, I'll just scout with buildings, because I'm Empire, and that's what I do. JulzzZ is going to be going for 2 refineries, packing up his MCV, and 2 power plants, and of course, 3 dojos, because why not? Going to be grabbing his own oil derrick while trying to snipe an engineer from Maniek. And Maniek, I'm absolutely hoping to see some crazy aircraft micro or something like that. Maniek, of course, going to be going for dual ref, powering that off of 1 barracks, actually selling the barrack. Kind of surprised did not see him power at least 3 or 4 more Peacekeepers, unless he's just going to pack up immediately and move for that middle ground. He is up to 2 refineries, most likely going to be throwing down an airfield before packing up and moving, and he is just going to pull back with the Peacekeepers, and it's kind of strange because he's basically leaving that oil derrick undefended, especially with this extra dojo core out of JulzzZ, and that's not really an extra. But JulzzZ instead going to be moving to the middle ground, setting up both of those power plants, and just now that dog, and there were probably a second dog, coming into play for Maniek, and Maniek actually going to be retreating back further inside of his own base with his Peacekeepers, desperately trying to build something. It was a seaport, in fact, what he threw down, so no aircraft quite yet, dropping a power plant. And most likely will be going for an airfield now, although, nope, just kidding, because the airfield is way the heck over there. Going to be setting it up on this dog. Brilliant timing with that dog. Well, not necessarily brilliant, but good timing with that dog, getting it in right when he needed to, and just, you know, setting it right next to that barracks to just eat anything that comes right out. Okay, he doesn't actually eat the units. He just kind of kills them and jumps on them. It's like a hug, but slightly more violent. And actually, JulzzZ going to be throwing down a wall, but the laser lock from that Javelin Trooper, couldn't even remember the name of it, that dog trying to give a hug to the Imperial Warrior. Imperial Warrior just saying, no, I want to shoot you. And the Imperial Warrior over here going to be killing that Javelin Trooper, so he is probably a racist, but we're not here to judge. Going to be instead going for Apollos, interestingly enough, predicting that there will be some Tengus, because, you know, there's never Tengus out of an Empire player. Just kidding, watch. I don't even remember anymore. Das Dulon and JulzzZ going to be doing some pretty heavy damage to the Imperial Warriors, taking out 3 with his 3, or actually was that 4 up here. Possibly 3 or 4 Imperial Warriors before engaging with a Riptide. And where is that secondary Riptide that was around just a moment ago? And somehow still managing to stick around with that single Imperial Warrior. So I think that JulzzZ is just kind of cheating at this point. Why is he doing that much damage to the power plant? That is absolutely silly out of JulzzZ, and it needs to be taken care of immediately by Maniek. Maniek going to be heading around with a couple of Vindicators and Apollos, just going to be cruising the base of what in the world is his name? JulzzZ. Why can I not remember names right now? JulzzZ going to be setting up a a 4th expansion, or rather taking a 4th ore node. And will he try to snipe the ore refinery before it actually deploys? It does not look like it. Instead, going to be going for taking out a couple of units, needs to pull his Apollo back right there, and does turn it around and then send it back to the airfield. Still producing a couple of Riptides, actually deciding to sell off his naval yard, and instead going to be going for a 3rd ore node, as well as, I can only guess, an armory at some point, rather a war factory, and going to be producing not a whole lot else, because he just basically he sold off his barracks early on, and then he is still going to be just powering off of this single airbase, or rather airfield, and just going off of those 3 refineries, and that, like a shotgun shooting that entire distance. Absolutely absurd, but I mean, really, are you watching this for realism? Because Red Alert 3, probably the most realistic game ever created. Sarcasm, children, is not uncommon on the internet. And Apollo's going to be getting some taking. Oh, just kidding, because it is going to be a mini Striker VX. So that thing is basically just like throwing rocks, just throwing little rocks at the Apollos. And it's like, hey, yeah, I threw like 400 pebbles at the Apollos. And decent micro of those cryocopters, not quite enough to finish the, or rather to freeze both of those Striker VXs, but instead a couple of Apollos, or couple of Vindicators, will take one down and then run back to that airfield. Apollo's also present, but, you know, they're not really doing a whole lot of shooting in terms of the ground stuff. And a single Riptide did get taken out by that Chopper VX, and already progressing on to Tier 2 and possibly even the mid-game. Deciding to leave this wall segment, I can only guess just for that teeny tiny bit of scouting information, because he will be able to see, oh, hey, you know, you're moving your MCV back, you're probably going to be expanding. You do have pretty ridiculous vision in Command & Conquer games in general, usually. Let's actually check how much that wall segment... Did he just sell that? No. Is the game just glitching out? No? Okay, so walls actually don't give you that much vision. That's good. But walls actually going to be providing a little teeny tiny bit of scouting information, to be able to take out 2 Imperial Warriors, basically with no contest, freezing them, which that sounds pretty horrible. Like, you freeze someone and then you shoot them. Are they still conscious at that point? I mean, how deep does this freeze go? These are the questions we need to be asking ourselves. I mean, really, like curing cancer or like curing, you know, AIDS or something? No. We need to be asking ourselves theoretical questions about cryo-freezing units in Red Alert 3, and my roommate may just have given me possibly the most absurd look of his life, and going to be a massive amount of Tengus completely eliminating both of those Vindicators after they take out the Striker VXs, and the Apollos are going to be able to take down 2, and only 2 of those... No, I don't even know anymore. 2 of those Jet Tengus did get taken out, I do believe, and 1 Apollo E going to be in that trade, but that is going to be 3 aircraft for Maniek, so Maniek just going to be pressing infantry, and now that armor facility is now up, not quite an armory, but rather an armor facility, and that wall still stands. So if Maniek runs right by that wall, it will be spotted by JulzzZ, but... like we saw before, not a whole lot of vision on those walls, which is probably good, because otherwise that might be a bit OP. Much like everything in the game, because someone's going to complain about something being OP. A couple of Jet Tengus going to be doing massive... Why are you throwing away units, Maniek? Throwing away nearly that Apollo and taking quite a bit of damage on it. Needs to get some repairs. But just these crowds of infantry, and what in the world is Maniek going to be doing? Still not producing anything really out of his armor facility. Has he built anything at all? Maybe just a Riptide. Is this Riptide full of... Javelin Troopers? Possibly. Is he just going to be trying to snipe this single refinery over here, or is he going to head onto land and try and do some more damage? Of course, going to be heading in with a bunch of Tengus, splitting up the Tengus, trying to do some massive damage. Never mind, because he just sent 1 up there. Tengu's going to decide to actually engage these Apollos. 1 Apollo does go down, but for trading, how many Tengus did he take out? 3, 4, 5, maybe even 6 or 7, and 2 Tengus do transform, and the third one up here will not get taken out by Vindicators. I don't think there are any Vindicators. In the meantime, in the middle of the map, nothing actually happening, but able to take out a single Harvester, so good on Maniek. Able to trade Harvesters with JulzzZ, but essentially JulzzZ actually not able to take out this Harvester, so pretty close to being even, and actually able to freeze down that other Tsunami tanks are now on the field, able to freeze down that other Mecha Tengu, so he will be keeping that one on ice and keeping it from going anywhere, but up to that Tier 2 upgrade. But also, more importantly than getting the Tier 2 upgrade that he's had for a little while, is getting out those Tsunami tanks, a unit that we did not see in a previous game, unfortunately, despite the fact that it was Dual Empire. Pretty cool game, though, despite the fact. And once again, going for another, well, actually turning the same Riptide around and sending it back around the south side of the map to do some more harassment. Quite a bit of water on this map, of course, making Riptide such a viable unit, such a good unit on this map, especially since you can do some damage here and then swing around onto land with a couple of Javelin Troopers and do even more damage. And, oh, the Cryocopters might be able to freeze down that Collector, and not good micro out of Maniek at all. Instead, going to be engaging with a whole bunch of Tsunami tanks, and actually a pretty good mix of units. We got anti-air mixed in there as well. Quite surprising to see that at the front of the army. Normally you keep that more in the back, but Tsunami tanks are in decent numbers, but more importantly, the infantry will be able to absorb quite a few shots from the ground army of Maniek, but also Those tank busters, if they go unchecked, will do absolutely massive amounts of damage. And trying to split up, no, that's actually just a single tsunami tank. I thought that there was some tsunami tanks as well, but turns out it was just an ore collector. But pulling back a single tsunami tank from the army, so Maniek just weakening this front door a little bit. But I think that on the ground, at least, JulzzZ does have an advantage. But if JulzzZ advances and actually attacks at the base of Maniek, he may have a couple of base defenses ready at some point, not actually able to get any up quite yet. He's still just chilling with that single multi-gunner turret with the Peacekeeper inside, because shotguns are just so good in this game because they can take down assault destroyers no problem. Yes, that one time. But the cryo shot actually going to be pretty good, but hitting that X button to split his units fairly well and actually able to take down one small group of units. And the Striker VX almost getting caught in that cryo shot and doing some damage. So Maniek doing a pretty good job of splitting the army up and actually causing some confusion within JulzzZ's army, able to essentially divide and conquer part of that army. Of course, not the entire thing. And using that Emperor's Rage maybe a bit preemptively, needs to transform that Defender VX and instead not going to be even bother microing. Get those cryocopters out of there. Not even going to be bother microing his Vindicator, just going to hit that single target and then get out of there. So Maniek doing a pretty good job of just taking down those ore collectors, just using the Riptide and also using his aircraft to just pick at ore collector after ore collector. And on the other hand, JulzzZ hasn't really done too much harassment other than early on where he was only able to take out one of those harvesters. And since then, Maniek has not expanded, but also he has been doing economic damage. So while JulzzZ is sitting on 4 ore nodes versus the 3 of Maniek would be behind economically, but he's doing a fair job of doing damage to his opponent. And the single Riptide going to actually not scoot by those jet tankers. They're going to completely surround and take it out instead of trying to turn around and fight, which possibly would have been the better choice, just to do a little bit of damage to those jet tankers and at the very least force the repair. And a couple of epic tank busters going to get completely crushed by these by the Guardian tanks from Maniek. And Maniek somehow, where in the world happened? The micro just not quite good enough out of JulzzZ, not able to do enough damage. And are they going to be here as the rest of the army? 2 Apollos are here to take out the Striker VXs, the Chopper VXs, and on the ground it does look like Maniek is winning, but in the skies it is the Apollos going down, which raining debris down upon their friends. Not a good place to be in. JulzzZ definitely winning in the air battle, and he's possibly going to try and do some damage to the base. No, just kidding, because he has to pull back. Cryocopter's going to be going down. 4, possibly all 4 of them will completely get taken out. It does look like maybe 1 or 2 escaped. I actually don't know what happened to them. And the Mecha Bay still going to be producing and sending out those tsunami tanks along that waypoint. Guardian tanks should have very little trouble actually cleaning up this small little expansion for JulzzZ, and JulzzZ may have just thrown that army away, losing all of those infantry without the support of the Tangos to kind of block the tanks. Was a huge mistake. So good on Maniek by separating that army and able to effectively divide and conquer. But now this single Chopper VX going to be able to completely clean up these Guardian tanks. So it is in no way over, and trying to micro that Chopper VX, but wasn't quite able to take out that other Guardian tank, which means he will have to take that out in just a moment. And the bloom is absolutely absurd on those rockets. I don't know if it's just this match. I do not remember that before. And completely cleaning up, well, not completely cleaning up the base over here, but the single Apollo may even get taken out as well. No, it will escape back home. And that engagement actually favoring Maniek originally, but then in the end it did swing back into JulzzZ's favor. JulzzZ was basically able to completely eliminate that army from Maniek despite taking heavy losses initially. Main difference being that JulzzZ was able to, or Maniek was able to take down the Mecha Bay of, oh no, not good. The cryo shot completely destroying this expansion for JulzzZ, and that's the micro from that Vindicator that I wanted to see out of Maniek earlier, but there was just no reason to, not with those defenses there. So instead, losing that Mecha Bay was not good, but he is still on those 4 bases. He has been on the 4 bases, and Maniek is still only on 3, which is never a good place to be when your opponent is on 4. So JulzzZ needs to either do something to really get ahead in the army and actually get a really favorable engagement so he can continue to press his economic advantage, or Maniek is just going to take this game away, because the constant harassment is really probably the biggest thing that's keeping Maniek from just totally being crushed. He has not been ahead in this economic game simply because the Empire can expand so much easier than any other race or any other faction race, because, you know, apparently the Empire is their own race. Freudian slip, maybe? Perhaps? Oh, just kidding, because this is not that serious. But we are going to be seeing re-macroing those Vindicators and Apollos, so getting that 2-2 combo and deciding to just not go for any additional airfields. He just doesn't even really care. Maniek just wants to keep that one single airfield going on and going to be trying to sneak in here, but not going to be able to do it. So JulzzZ doing a good job of keeping his ore collectors alive now. He did lose the one and, well, the one refinery over there, so taking quite a bit of damage from Maniek over the course of this game, despite being ahead in expansions. And what was I saying earlier? They could expand easier, but on the other hand, Maniek has done far more economic damage to JulzzZ than JulzzZ has done in return to Maniek, and who is really ahead in terms of units lost, well, in terms of like cost of units and buildings lost, because Maniek has been doing a pretty good job of doing massive amounts of damage and costing, you know, an additional $2,000 for that mecha bay by taking it out up here, and then, what is it, like $2,500 for the ore refinery. Not money that JulzzZ wanted to be spending, and trying to trap that Striker VX. What in the world are you doing, Striker VX? You need to get out of there. Or actually, Maniek should have made better use of that opportunity and tried to do some damage to that. Oh, trying to sneak a Riptide by, not able to do it. Maniek should have pulled forward a little bit and tried to do some damage to that Striker VX while it was so far forward. And he might have even gotten a little bit lucky and been able to completely take out that epic Striker VX. Instead, it was able to rejoin the army and going to be setting out another Cryocopter strike force. Needs to absolutely be defended, and actually something I was going to say about the expansions is Maniek, on top of doing a pretty good job of taking out harvesters and refineries, he's also been doing a pretty good job of doing exactly this. He brings units, or he essentially forces units off the front line for JulzzZ, and then they have to fly over, defend, and sometimes JulzzZ pulls off too many units, like all of his jet tangus, which is what happened last time. And this could be the final engagement of the map. And oh no, going to be turning around, so JulzzZ decides he is not quite ready for this engagement. He's going to try and do so, take some pot shots off at Maniek, but Maniek pulling back and staying safe, staying where he knows he's safe and within the range of that single turret, but also within the range of his MCV, which can, of course, pack back up and do some serious crushing. Going to be trying to go for that mainframe, but also the tier 3 on top of that mecha bay. Get out some King Onis, but more likely get out that Wave Force artillery, which, of course, so important. And have we actually seen the maximum security or maximum clearance upgrade out of the Cryo Shot? Once again, going to be splitting up these forces out of Maniek, rather, and the Cryo Shot completely splitting up these forces, allowing a couple of tank busters to go down, but also completely forcing the retreat because, again, divide and conquer. Maniek is doing a pretty good job, and he probably will be hitting one of the refineries quite soon, although he can hit that one quite easily. He needs to swing around, do some economic damage to put himself further ahead in this game. If he could even up the refineries, he may very well be able to take this game, but going to be heading in with only 3 tsunami tanks. Get the rest of your army in there, JulzzZ, just sitting around, not doing anything, trying to do some crushing of those infantry, and the Guardian tank's going to completely surround the tsunami tanks for JulzzZ, and JulzzZ is just maybe throwing away this entire battle, trying to get his aircraft in there to do some damage to those Cryocopters, doing a good job of cleaning up the aircraft, and now it's just Striker VXs, which once again, JulzzZ may be able to completely take this battle with just Striker VXs. No, there are too many Javelin troopers on the ground and trying to get a tsunami tank into the front lines to do the crushing, but not able to do it because of those Cryocopters, which did not get eliminated by the jet tankus, which have just now rolled up onto the scene. This is almost like a repeat of that last battle, but turning out slightly different, and JulzzZ may be able to clean up this army with his last few tankus, may be able to eliminate the rest of the aircraft, paving the way, or the rest of the anti-air, paving the way for a couple of Striker VXs, or rather Chopper VXs, to do some damage, and once again splitting up his Guardian tanks to try and do maximum damage and provide and prolong their life, taking out one harvester, and then he's going to head back to base, which is probably the best choice, and going to try and take down one of the tsunami tanks. So JulzzZ, I don't know, because at first he was not favored in that engagement, but then he was able to swing it back into his favor with those with the Tengus, he was able to bring them back into the battle, take out the remaining anti-air, which allowed him to, hey, you know, get those Striker VXs. Oh, no, just kidding, because they're basically worthless again with the Apollos here. Striker VXs actually showing up a little bit late to the party. They were able to kind of show up late and do some damage at the end, and this single Apollo is going to be nearly sacrificing himself. That was a very risky move. Well, not super risky, but a risky move nonetheless by Maniek. He was like, hey, you know, I'm going to go over here. I'm going to do some damage. I'm going to sacrifice this Apollo quite possibly. He didn't know what he was heading into. He could guess. He did get some serious scouting information, seeing that tier 3, and most likely knowing, hey, there's probably going to be an upgrade coming along sometime soon, but I do think that would be very foolish of JulzzZ to try and get that upgrade right now. One final attack force going to be moving out. I'm assuming one final attack force. And this Apollo possibly being thrown away. Not something you want to do. Pull your Apollos back, Maniek. Go for the gold and go for that refinery. Might even take down the refinery instead. Going to be engaging. So JulzzZ is out for, or Maniek is out for blood. He's just interested in completely finishing this game, and I cannot say I blame him. Going to be able to take down that Chopper VX and reverse moving his Guardian tanks to try and stay out of the way of the MCB. MCB actually going to be pulling back, so is that the right choice? Shrinking down the King Oni, and the Bull Rush will allow him to escape. Maybe where in the world is that King Oni doing? Trying to run around the Mecha Bay, or as I said in a previous game, ring around the Rosie rung. No, I didn't even say it right that time. Back your tanks up, back those Guardian tanks up out of there, and one does get crushed, but running around the Ringtail Monkey Tree, going to be completely eliminating that MCB, and the King Oni getting stuck on that Guardian tank. The Cryo Shot going down, completely effectively wasting that Cryo Shot on simply a barracks, and you know what, Power Plant on the edge. Power Plant probably will get a little bit of frozen in it. Yes, it did in fact actually freeze, and that is going to be it. JulzzZ not even going to be, I don't even know what caused that, like, because normally I thought if you quit a game, it would just be like, hey, you were defeated and your opponent was. I'm not sure. Maybe it just crashes the entire game client. I'm not sure how JulzzZ actually crashed the game for both of them, but I think a little bit more well-defined in this game. So good game to JulzzZ, but certainly good game to Maniek. Look at that. Look how far he was behind. Well, actually, that graph really has no meaning because the numbers are basically arbitrary. You don't really know one game to the next. The graph is going to look completely different because it's all relative. Don't know if I just said what I tried to say, but I think I did. And Maniek, look at that unit kill-to-death ratio, but then look at that. An additional 700 credits per minute, which is not very much. So actually not a very big gap, only 15,000 credits over the course of 22 minutes. So in that other game, it was like, what, 2,000 credit difference? I think, I don't even remember. I think it was 2,000 credits over 22 minutes. So this game favoring Maniek, but favoring JulzzZ in that economy, and just Maniek able to do so much damage, but also that economy would have been absolutely out of control for JulzzZ if he hadn't been taking so much economic damage from Maniek, and a couple of those engagements favored Maniek a bit too much for Julzz's liking and for JulzzZ to survive, but still a good game out of JulzzZ and some really good micro on both of these players' parts. Very impressed with some of the previous games that we've been seeing, including this one. So I hope you enjoyed it, and we will see you in another game. This is Sybert signing out.